Well, one, when you're using AI, ask the question, are you using it for a 20% priority that drives 80% of the results? Or are you using it for an 80% task that only drives 20% of the results? Most people are using it on the tactical 80%. The AI-driven leader shows you how to focus it on the 20% that's strategic. That's step one, is just, do I use it to write a better email? Yes. Do I use it as a search engine? Yes. Is that where I focus? No. I mean, literally walking you through my use case of yesterday. How do we go from 25x revenue in 10 years to 250x revenue in 3 years? And let's turn that into a credible, sufficient business plan. That was a good investment of my time. Last night, I did a session with a group in Hong Kong. They want to double the size of their business in 10 years. I said, you're thinking too slow.
Geoff Woods, thanks so much for being with us today. I've been looking forward to this interview. You're a busy guy, and I know we've been planning this for about 2 months. So glad to finally have you on the show.
It's a pleasure, and thanks for sticking with me and my schedule.
Yeah, I can imagine how exciting your life must be right now. Geoff, I'm going to dive right in. You've gone from scaling the one thing to growing a steel company's market cap by 15x to leading in AI. That's quite a path.
It has been a wild ride.
So tell us, like, how did that progression happen, and what did you learn in those first two, in themselves incredibly amazing rides to where you are today?
When I look backwards on my journey, I realize that it's been a reflection of surrounding myself with people who are where I want to be and asking them the right questions and unlocking collective knowledge that you can then turn into action. And this goes back to college, my senior year. I was doing an internship and I sat down with the CEO right before graduating and I asked him what job he thought I should get after school. And he leans in and he goes, "Geoff, you're asking the wrong question. You really should be asking, what are the skills I can master that are so valuable they'll serve me no matter where I go? Then go find jobs that will help you build those skills." A few things happened in that moment. Once, it was the first time in my life I was introduced to the power of asking the right questions. Second, what I didn't realize is that asking the right questions would be a skill that would define my career. I ended up, after college, I went into sales because he suggested that would be a skill worth mastering. He was right, by the way. And I wanted to get into business ownership. And I ended up partnering with Gary Keller, who started Keller Williams, the real estate company, and his co-author, Jay Papasan. They wrote The One Thing, massively popular business book. They wanted to turn the book into a company, but Gary's one thing was running Keller Williams. Jay's one thing was writing books with Gary. They had been looking for somebody whose one thing was the one thing, and that became me. So they gave me all of Gary's models and systems for scaling companies, which KW is a massive company, and said, you got to learn them, you got to live them, and then you got to be able to teach them. And so a lot of what I ended up doing was going into companies, a lot of mid-market, all the way up to Fortune 500, driving strategic planning. And core to this was the skill of asking the right questions. There's a company that delivers the majority of your packages. I used to lead strategic planning for them. And I remember walking into our offsite and the senior leader handed me his draft of the business plan. It was 21 pages long. By the end of the day, by asking the right questions and not adding more, but by doing less, we collapsed the plan from 21 pages down to one focused page that truly reflected the things that mattered most. And this is when I realized I had a power to ask leaders the right questions, to get them to focus on what matters most that would drive growth of companies. In 2022, I sold my stake in the business and it was time for the next chapter. I ended up going in-house as a chief growth officer for a big steel company out of India. I had been the chairman's coach. I was the coach to the whole exec team when I was with the one thing, and they asked if I would come in to drive growth of all their operating companies. You're talking 100,000 people around the world. This is a very large company. And my focus was strategic. There were four drivers: strategy, execution, people, and technology. Strategy was working with every operating company to define the competitive moat they were building in the future. Most companies don't really know that. They can't, like, if you said, tell me the competitive advantage you're building, they're going to look at you like a deer in the headlights. Well, if you can't articulate where you're going to go, how do you know where to go? And so we would isolate that. Then execution. What is our focused business plan that we will stay focused on? That if we do so, will lead to building and fortifying that competitive advantage. Once we lock that in, then you look to people. The purpose of people in a company is to achieve the goals. Goals change every year. But do job descriptions? In our case, the answer was no. And so we had 100,000 people working really hard, but sometimes running in the wrong directions. Well, how could you realign a workforce of that size? Only way you could do that is if you looked at technology. This focus on those four drivers of growth took the market cap from 750 million to 12 billion over 4 years. Part of that was AI, not all of it. Part. It was December of 22 when I saw ChatGPT for the first time. And when I saw it, I saw the next skill. I remember thinking, this is so cool. But then I had these limiting beliefs. I'm so busy. I'll get to this later. Or, you know what? I think I can delegate this to IT. They'll figure it out. And I think a lot of leaders listening to this can probably identify with not taking action because you don't know where to start and you're so busy, or tech will figure it out. But there was something deep inside me that said, I think this is a skill worth mastering. I think you should focus on it. It's probably going to serve you no matter where you go. And so I just made a commitment. I'm going to use this once a day. The problem was I was asking myself the wrong questions. I was asking, how do I use this to write a better email? And I wondered why the results were underwhelming. But then I thought, maybe it's not the tech, maybe it's me. And as I reflected, I went, okay, my career has been defined by surrounding myself with the right people, asking them the right questions to unlock new levels of growth. What if instead of asking AI questions, I turned the tables and had AI ask me the right questions? That was the game changer for me, because it wasn't about using it as a Google or as an assistant. It was about using it as a thought partner. I was in Delhi every quarter. I'm at the chairman's house and I start showing him how I'm using this for strategy. And he goes, this is incredible. I go, yeah, it's the future. And he goes, I agree. And I said, I think we should drive it through the whole company. He goes, I agree. And I said, I think this is so important. You should own this as chairman of the board. And he goes, I disagree. How about you do it? One problem: I know nothing about AI. But asking, how do I drive this through the company, was the wrong question. I learned from Gary Keller, anytime you're hitting a ceiling of achievement, you're just missing a person. Who am I missing? That if I could get into relationship with them, could enable me to drive this through the whole company. That led to a partnership with Google. And I started going to their headquarters in Delhi. I learned a lot about the tech. We started identifying use cases. We started driving it. And pretty quickly, it became very clear. The tech is not the difference that makes the difference. It's the leader who harnesses it. But nobody was talking about the leader. So I resigned, literally burnt the ships, and said, I'm going to write a book about this. I'm going to build a company based on this. No net. And the AI Driven Leader is now the #1 book in the world for the subject. And AI Leadership is our company that focuses on building the world's largest network of AI driven leaders who come together in what we call the collective. So imagine a cohort of about 100 to 120 C-level executives from different companies, where we collaborate on how we are harnessing the technology. So you just have so much intelligence that you're vastly ahead of your competition. And everybody is driving amazing enterprise value by harnessing this to enhance people and enhance business outcomes.
Yeah, that is awesome. And of course, that was, the book that you just, which you said now is the #1 book in the space. the AI driven leader is, of course, is why I initially reached out to you, because it became my favorite book this
Hmm.
year, because of it, it was so helpful to me, to help to sort of figure out what it is that we're doing at Dynamico as far as how we adopt AI. Um, but so you just mentioned the collective. This is the business side. So the book is helping. I know personally, hundreds, but I know, and of course there are thousands of leaders that are using your book essentially to help them be more strategic as leaders first, and then of course using AI in doing so. You're in the collective. You just mentioned, cohorts of, like you say, 100, 120 folks, C-level leaders. What size and types of companies are in the
Mid-market
collective?
to enterprise, mostly. So I'd say the core currently is mid-market. So call it the 50 to a billion range. And then you've got C-suite from Fortune 500 in there as well. And you've got some that are around 10 million that are growing really fast. And the diversity makes it really interesting because everybody has strengths and everybody has challenges, and you're just learning from everybody. And it's what's blown my mind. None of these people are technical, by the way. These are the CEO, the COO, the CSO, CFO, CIO, and sometimes multiple people from a company. Because that way, if it's just the CEO, they come up with this vision, but then they step back into the business like a wrecking ball. And so if they bring the integrators to make it real people with them, it becomes very powerful. But it's tough to read the label when you're inside the box. And when you get into a room with other leaders who are playing at your level, who are equally committed to harnessing this technology to build better leaders, better businesses, and better lives, and you start sharing use cases on how you're deploying this, and our job is to be facilitator and to ask the right questions and to give you the guidance so you always know what to do next in a way that actually drives enterprise value. The movement we are seeing people make in 90 days is remarkable.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think, just to complete that, your analogy of, I typically use the bottle, but the box, of course, works just as well. If you're inside the bottle or the box, you cannot see what it says on the label. But when you're in a room of people like that, everybody's essentially has a similar label on the outside, and you can see your own business through everybody else's
Yeah.
label, right?
I mean, literally yesterday, I was having a conversation with one of the members in our collective, and he was talking about how, literally, with ChatGPT, he created a custom GPT that he trained to be a CRO. And every week, he has it review his HubSpot pipeline with him and interview him and ask him questions about the status of certain deals and unlock non obvious insights about revenue and about the projections. And I'm going, how come we haven't thought of that? But then I walk him through how we built a GPT to help with product market fit, where any new idea that we have, instead of just having a hunch, we submit it to this GPT, and the GPT asks a few questions and then scores it on a very strategic rubric that we have created and tells us if we should pilot it, pivot it, scale it, or kill it. And
Mm,
I'll take it one
very
further.
powerful.
This is wild. We use Fathom as our AI note taker. So when it's running and we're talking to customers, if they say something smart, we click the highlight button. My team, nobody knows how to write code, by the way, zero. Used AI to tell us how to do this, where we click the highlight button, it goes ahead and rewinds, captures the segment that matters until we say stop, sends it to Slack in a voice of customer channel, and then once a week, actually this will happen today. Right now, actually, 20 minutes ago, an email should have been delivered to my inbox where all of the voice of customer segments over the last week were sent to Notebook LM, where it turned it into a 15-minute podcast that is now waiting for me in my inbox so I can listen to a podcast on the voice of our customer as prep for our product market fit meeting tomorrow.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, it is incredibly powerful,
So
and
it's
a great real example as
correct.
well that
So
you're
like this
sharing.
brain
Yeah,
trust is just something that we have created that has become massively more valuable than I ever thought.
right. But one of the other things that, I mean, and you alluded to this earlier, like when you were first challenged with this AI opportunity, you know, I mean, you've said that you didn't think of yourself as an AI expert,
No.
right? Um, how did you go from saying to yourself, well, I'm not an AI expert, to now literally
Yeah.
being a global leader in the space?
I learned something from Dan Sullivan, who started Strategic Coach, called the 4 C's. Most people think you have to have the confidence and the capability before you start. And he said it's backwards. First, you make a commitment to become who you want to become. Then you summon the courage to start taking action when you feel utterly unqualified, until you gain enough capability that you then get confidence. And this was February 8th of 2024. I know the date to the specific. I was having a conversation with a guy named Charlie Hone, who's one of the best business book coaches in the world. He was behind Tim Ferriss. He was behind a lot of big name authors that you know, and he was behind me now. Um,
Hmm.
Charlie said, "You got to write the book to drive the company." And I said, "Well, two problems. One, I don't know what the book is about. And two, the company doesn't even exist yet. And oh, a third, I don't feel qualified to write the book." Because as much as I learned with Jindal Steel and starting to drive AI, I was just that much more clear on how little I knew. And I asked him, or I asked myself, do I wait to become a person who's qualified and then I start writing? Or do I start writing and use it as a forcing mechanism for me to go so deep on research and so heavy on application that I would actually emerge as a global thought leader? And the moment I asked the question, I said, that's it. And so I made the commitment. February 8th of 24, I said, I'm going to write a book. My goal was to get to a draft by the end of the year. I had no idea that I would go start to finish in 5 months, and that it would instantly release as a number one bestseller, and that we'd actually form a company by end of year, let alone it be where we're at now. I mean, we've only really been in business like 8 months, and it's a material business, full team. And I've almost fully leveraged myself out of the company to the point that it can operate without me.
I mean, that is unbelievable, because when I heard about the book, I got the book, I started reading about the book, and then of course very quickly realized that there's actually a business behind this book. I'm like, and then I looked at the timeline. I'm like, how could you write the book and start a business and be so far along already within, like, this is like a year, when I
Yeah.
when I first heard about the book.
It's
Um,
amazing. It's
anyway, yeah. So,
amazing what happens if you learn how to harness AI to enhance you and to turn your strengths into superpowers. And that's all I did. I mean, classic example with the book. People ask me, "Did you use AI to write the book?" My answer is, every word in that book is mine. And I used AI to overcome all the obstacles that stop 97% of first time authors from even getting to a draft. I used it like when I would generate a chapter.
sounds like there's a strategy circle
Oh,
in
heck
there.
yeah. I used it to act as my ideal reader, which I trained it on a persona of who my ideal reader was. It read every chapter and gave me feedback on what it liked about it, what it didn't like about it, and the top changes I would have to make so that they would say it's the best book they've ever read. And then I would restructure the chapters. So, like, I just collapsed time with AI.
So just rewind for a sec, Geoff. So you were saying, uh, so the recommendation was you write the book, and the book will drive the business. Is that
Yes, he
correct?
said, if you, because he knew I wanted to start a business, but he said a lot of people write a book and say, I just want to write a book, but they don't have a purpose for the book, or they don't think strategically about how does the book become a springboard for a business, which I already knew that from building the company behind the one thing. I knew I wanted to line them up, but I had no idea what the company was going to be about. And I had no idea what the book was going to be about. So, how do you start if you can't connect those two dots? My answer was start and figure it out.
Hmm. But so you were building the company in parallel to writing the
Nope.
book.
My
No.
full-time focus was the book, and it wasn't until the book was done that I actually started focusing on and published. Because once I wrote it, then it was all about getting it published and marketed. And once that was done, it wasn't until Q4 of 24 that we actually started selling anything.
Yeah, that's like 6 months
I
ago.
know.
Yeah, that's crazy. Um, the other thing that I've heard Dan Sullivan talk about is, so a lot of us use different entrepreneurial models for growth and whatever, whether it's the one thing or EOS or scaling up or whatever. And it always, starts with a vision. And I heard Dan Sullivan recently say, well, a, a a truly powerful vision and a successful vision is based on capability, right? It shouldn't just be a dream, which is how I've often thought about my vision should be something that doesn't yet exist or whatever. But when he reframed that for me to say, well, if your vision is not based on your current capability, knowing of course that your capability will grow, then it's going to be really hard to execute on that the strategy that comes from the vision or the execution of that vision, because it's not based on anything on any kind of reality.
I agree. And this was, I'll say it differently. A lot of people focus on product market fit, but they may not think about founder market fit. And this was something that I was pretty purposeful about before I started building AI leadership. Is when I exited the one thing, um, I lost my identity because I made the mistake of attaching my identity to my work instead of aligning my identity to my work. And so that took, I mean, that was like 6 months of very deep inner work and healing to discover, who am I? I am not my job. I am not my title. I'm a family man with a business, not a businessman with a family. I'm somebody who is here on this earth to share ideas that changes what's possible for people. How I do that comes through the form of my current business in AI leadership and in writing the AI driven leader. I really thought about, how do I build a business around my unique ability? How do I build a business that harnesses my strengths in terms of who am I? And then how do I lead with revenue and reinvest it to acquire other people who have other capabilities to keep me in my unique ability? And that's where I played who, not how very hard the last 6 months. And literally, we have a full team now. I set the goal that by the end of this year, 90% of my time would be in unique ability. When I said it, honestly, I didn't believe it. We're halfway through the year and I'm almost there.
Yeah, I mean that is incredible and obviously very, very impressive. For those listening who are not familiar with the book, Who Not How, written by Dan Sullivan and Ben Hardy, was my number one book 2 years ago. Last year, my number one book was also written by the same two authors, which is 10x is easier than 2x. And it sounds like I'm actually speaking to somebody right now who is doing exactly that. You're essentially 10xing something in a way that is so much easier than 2xing
So
something.
I've already, and this is crazy. I said this to some people I'm in relationship with. I look at certain metrics, revenue metrics, where they were at the beginning of this year. We haven't just 10x, we've already 20x'd in 6 months. And yesterday, literally yesterday, I have a goal, or had a goal, that in 10 years, let me think, do 10 this year. Let me do some quick math. The numbers matter. Divided by, nope, messed that up. There you go. Boom. My goal used to be we wanted to 25x our revenue over the next 10 years. Yesterday, I realized I was thinking too small. And so I went to my AI board, which I have built an AI board. This is a custom project inside ChatGPT I have fed it my 10-year vision. I have fed it my business plan. It knows my strengths and weaknesses. It knows my personality profiles. And I had it interview me to identify the strengths that I would need to acquire if I were to assemble a real board to get me where I want to go in 10 years. So Steve Jobs is on my board for vision, product design, and storytelling, but he's not allowed to give me advice on being a husband, a father, or a leader. Warren Buffett is on my board for long term planning and risk mitigation. My future self, 30 years in the future, is on my board so I can have a conversation with the man I want to become today. I was on a flight from Austin to New York yesterday for 2.5 hours straight. I am having a conversation back and forth with my AI board where I said, all right, our goal has been to 25x revenue over the next 10 years. I think I'm thinking too small. I want a 250x revenue in 3 years. Your job is to interview me, to ask me the right questions, to pull the context that you need out of my head on what we're currently doing, and for you to be ruthless about what are the things that we need to keep doing to get us there, and what are the things that we need to stop doing, and acknowledging that I'm probably in a fight to keep some darlings, and some of them we probably have to kill. And the task is ultimately to create a credible plan that would have the actual sufficiency to 250x revenue in the next 3 years. And I had a conversation back and forth with AI for literally 2.5 hours on this. Sure enough, now I think I'm thinking too small, because now I can see the path. Now I understand what we can do, and it's very within our capability, which means I have to raise the goal again. So I presented that to the team yesterday, and they were, when I told them the number, they were like, yeah, you're smoking something. And when I showed them the plan, they went, oh, I was thinking too small.
Yeah, which is, I mean, so one of the things that, I learned early on, for some reason we're talking about Dan Sullivan a lot, but one of the things he talks about a lot is entrepreneurs don't have unrealistic goals; they just have unrealistic timelines. But even that is being challenged currently, and I think you're a perfect example, and all the things you're talking about are a perfect example of that. Is suddenly because in his model, you take a 25-year timeline when you're discussing goals with your team, and you say, well, could we 20x something in 25 years? And people will, eventually you go, oh yeah, 25 years, that's a long time, we can do that. So what about 20? What about 15? What about 10? Now suddenly you can say, well then why couldn't we do it in 3 years? And now you can potentially do it if you're doing all these things right.
Well, and it's a combination. It's mindset and it's AI. One, and this is rooted in the core of the AI-driven leader. Is it serving you to hold on to the person that you used to be? Versus what would happen if you were willing to let go of who you've been so you could reimagine who you can become? When most people set goals, they set them based on what they've done in the past. They anchor themselves to the past for a future outcome that they desire. That makes no sense. So being willing to let go of, hey, this has been our product offering in the past, but if that's not going to scale to where we want to go, then it's no longer the right product offering. Maybe you're missing a new product offering. Well, we don't have a person who's able to deliver that. Great, you're missing a person. Go hire him. Go acquire the capability. And so if you're willing to just draw a line in the sand and say the past is the past, it does not predict my future. I get to set a goal and use the goal as a compass to inform who I can become. And if you set a short timeline, what happens is it collapses your options. All of a sudden, not anything will get you there. Only a few things, or maybe even one thing, will get you there. And then you dive in. And AI plays into this because so much of what we have done, frankly, is acting like machines. Send this email, do this task, generate this report. We're acting like industrial workers standing at an assembly line. And we had to set aside our human strengths in 1900 to start acting like machines. People are still acting like machines. Our public education system still teaches people to act like machines.
Yeah, don't even
Yep,
go there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Show up to school on time, take direction from a teacher, do something repetitively with minimal error, with maximum efficiency. So
you have to learn this and you have to learn this because this is what worked 100 years ago.
Versus realizing that If we've been acting like machines and that's the majority of our time, if AI is going to take that away, I say hallelujah. Because that isn't it ironic that a machine is likely what's going to return us to what makes us human? And what would your life look like if your day was filled harnessing your unique strengths as a human, focused on the 20% priorities of the role in alignment with the company goals, and you used AI to turn your strengths into superpowers? I don't know about you. That sounds pretty good. And this is not some pipe dream. This is my life now. And for context, we're talking under a year and a half ago that I said, I'm going to start writing a book before I felt qualified to do it. Like, that's how fast this has happened.
Right. So we've touched on it multiple times already, but so you talk a lot about focusing on the 20% of work that gets you the 80% of the results. Um, so to just more specifically, how does AI help, entrepreneurs or leaders double down on that 20%?
Well, one, when you're using AI, ask the question, are you using it for a 20% priority that drives 80% of the results? Or are you using it for an 80% task that only drives 20% of the results? Most people are using it on the tactical 80%. The AI driven leader shows you how to focus it on the 20% that's strategic. That's step one, is just, do I use it to write a better email? Yes. Do I use it as a search engine? Yes. Is that where I focus? No. I mean, literally walking you through my use case of yesterday. How do we go from 25x revenue in 10 years to 250x revenue in 3 years? And let's turn that into a credible, sufficient business plan. That was a good
Yeah.
investment of my time. Last night, I did a session with a group in Hong Kong. They want to double the size of their business in 10 years. I said, you're thinking too slow and you're not thinking big enough. We're going to do it in 3. And we used it to come up with a credible plan for them to expand into Japan, and identified 5 high impact, non-obvious strategies they could deploy that would ensure they'd be successful doubling the size of their business by expanding into Japan when they have no Japanese people within their company. And by the time I was done, he was like, oh, smokes, this will work. By the way, that use case took 10 minutes. 10 minutes. So you can spend 10 minutes checking email. You can spend 10 minutes on social media, or you can spend 10 minutes figuring out how to double the size of your business in the next 3 years. The difference is not the tool. The difference is the person wielding it. I'm just getting people to think more strategically about it.
Yeah. Well, which I think for me, was, and I think this is your goal too. Reading your book it's not really about AI. It's about being a strategic leader. AI is just the technology that we're harnessing to be more strategic leaders, right? And I think if there's nothing else that people take away from this session, that this conversation, it's first of all, get the book, but get the book knowing this is going to be about making you a more strategic leader. You just happen to be using and harnessing AI to do so.
And I would encourage you, don't treat this book like any other book. Your goal is not to read it cover to cover as fast as possible, although you will read it fast because it's an easy read. Your goal is to apply it. I had a conversation with a guy in our collective this morning, and I asked him, like, what did his journey in AI even look like? And he said, well, I listened to your book once, and then I listened to it 2 more times. And after I had listened to it 3 times, I actually got the hard copy and I read it twice. And I'm like, okay, let's stop. Like, this is a busy CEO of a decent sized company. Like, you got stuff to do. Why? And he said, because this changed who I am. This returned me to who I am, and using this technology to enhance me. Like, this is not something just to skim through. This is something to apply. This changed my life, which is extremely honoring and humbling. But I share that you have you have a career defining opportunity right now. It is so early in the game. Everybody's like, oh, am I behind? The answer is yes, you're behind. It's not what matters, because it's so early in the game. The question is, can you still win? That answer is yes, but it does require that you stop buying into the excuses of, I'm not technical, I don't know where to start. You're just missing a person. You're missing a who. And in this case, I might be that person for you. Read the book, find out.
Hmm. Yeah, I had to do the same thing. I because I wanted to make sure that I was consuming the book as quickly as possible. I got the Audible, which was really quick. I downloaded the Kindle version, and then I got the hard copy so that as I was listening, I could read one or the other, and I could take notes, and I could, depending on where I was, if I was driving or sitting somewhere where I could make notes or go to your website or whatever.
Did
It
you use the
is,
prompts in the
yeah,
book?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in fact, so my wife, was also my business partner, we then got her own copy, um, and I mean her AI journey in the last 2 months because of it has just been crazy. But you're right, it's not a book from that perspective. So I totally agree. It's really it's like it's a playbook essentially, but you have all the you have the Audible version, you have all these different things. But I think just just listening to it isn't going to be enough. You have to be able to consume it in multiple ways. um Anyway, so just to I have two more questions because I want to make sure we get you out of here in time. um Geoff, so for a CEO listening right now, what is one simple way they could start using AI this week that would make a real
Yep.
difference?
Simple. Get 2 sticky notes and a Sharpie. On sticky note number 1, write the question, how can AI help me do this? And put it on your desk. And that serves as a forcing function. It's tough to read the label when you're inside the box. You are doing stuff every day that matters. I guarantee, once in the next day are going to be doing something, and you're going to look down and see that sticky note and you go, how can AI help me review my financial statements? Which happened to me. And then you're going to see the second sticky note that says context, role, interview, task. Crit. Crit is my prompt framework. This is how you talk to AI. It works for any use case, and it will take you into the top 1% of people using AI globally. You give AI lots of context. You assign it a role where you tell AI to act as a certain type of expert. Then you turn,
Yeah, like you used the
yep,
example earlier of Steve
bingo.
Jobs. Exactly.
Then
Yeah.
you turn the
Yeah.
tables and you have AI interview you. This is where I don't ask AI questions. I get AI to ask me questions so it can then accomplish a task, what you want it to do. So, real use case, I was reviewing my financials. I saw the first sticky note and went, well, how can AI help me review my financial statements? What would that prompt even look like? And then I saw crit and I went, okay, context, here's my financial statements. And I dragged and dropped them. Role, your role is to act as a strategic CFO who's great at telling a CEO the top 5 things they don't know about their business based on the financials that they should know about their business. Interview me. Ask me 1 question at a time, up to 5 questions to gain deeper context. Task, tell me what those 5 things are. That was the prompt. That was so mind blowing that I eventually turned that into a custom GPT where now when I get my financials, I just drag them into the GPT. It asks me 5 questions and it tells me the things I should know about my business that I don't know about my business.
Yeah, that is so powerful. So I wanted there was something else I wanted to ask you because the who I think the who question is a big one that a lot of leaders are thinking is like, I'm like I'm not technical, I don't know about AI. Your example you said was the Google team in India, I think it was back then, right? So when as leaders are thinking about a who, do you have any more tips on like, is it an individual or is it a company? I mean, obviously, I'm guessing would the collective
Yes.
be considered a who?
Yes. The first
Yeah,
who is actually you. Before you can build an AI driven organization, you have to become an AI driven leader. Now, let me be clear. I am not asking you, you do not need to become a technical person. You do not need to become an AI expert. You need to become an AI driven leader. That means that you know enough to use the tool on a daily basis so that you can define your vision for the future. You can articulate your strategy for how you're going to win, and you can lead the change. That is exactly what the collective is for, is turning you into an AI-driven leader and giving you all the resources and relationships you could need to drive this. You don't have tech people, we have strategic partners. We, just like how you do this for HubSpot, we have the same relationships with people who can do AI implementation. We don't do it. We connect with the right who's who can do it, and we introduce our members to them. That's where they go. Then as you start driving this through the company, and you start to get your team to start using this, and you start to figure out how do you start to augment some of your processes, like I walked through our product market fit process. You then start thinking about, how do I weave this through my product or service? The reason you can't do it right now is because it's like you've been living in black and white your entire life and you've never seen color, and you're trying to describe color. You have to become an AI-driven leader before you can understand how you create an AI-driven organization. All leadership starts with self-leadership. The who you are missing is you. The question is, who can you become?
Right. Which again is like, what makes you more take what makes me a more strategic leader, and then add AI kind of thing. Wow, I have so many things. I mean, we could obviously keep chatting for a long time. Okay, so 2 more questions. If you could give one piece of advice to entrepreneurs or leaders about how to thrive with AI, not just survive, what would it be?
Go first and use it every day. 2 sticky notes. How can AI help me do this? Crit, context, role, interview, task. The end.
Right. And then finally, what's inspiring you most right now in your own journey with AI and leadership?
Realizing that every time I think I'm thinking big, I realize I'm still thinking small. I'm expanding what's possible, which is my purpose in life, is to share ideas that expand what's possible for people. And I'm getting to literally see it on a daily basis.
Yeah, and I love that analogy, and it sounds like it works really well here too. Like, if you've been living your whole life in black and white, and now you're trying to figure out what color looks like, that seems to wrap it up, right?
Mm-hmm. That's right. But then you start to see color,
Awesome.
and then you start to see different shades, and it just welcome to the game. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Right. It's almost like, one of the things I was thinking about is, it's almost like this is what heaven looks like. Anyway, Geoff, thank you so much for joining me today. It was awesome to see you. Safe travels, and I look forward to connecting with you again soon in the future.
Thank you so much for having me.